Sometimes we need to look back in history to understand where Ripple and XRP are actually going. Somebody uncovered a really incredible video that talks about all kinds of really interesting things: faster payments, Internet of Value, ISO and how it links to Ripple, and just so much more. The person speaking here is going to be Marcus Treacher. Marcus Treacher joined Ripple in 2016, and he was appointed the global head of strategic accounts. So I want to go through this, give you some additional context as well as some history about all of this, and really uncover this video and give it the credit it should have had. Only 20 people, now 10,000 people have saw this, but when this was posted, only had 20 views. That's kind of crazy. All right, let's just jump into this and we'll have a little fun.
So let's dive into the wonderful technology, and it is a wonderful technology. It's like a faster car. So let's talk about making the faster car. The social challenges we can have in another podcast. So you can pick up on that if a little bit if you want, but otherwise we can look at doing the faster payments. Everybody wants faster payments. I've mentioned before I'm going to do a worldwide range of London FinTech podcast hoodies, which I think is going to take the world by storm. Which means I want micro payments from people all over the world, and I can't do that with the existing system. So is the next generation here at the moment? Is it here in part? Is it here in full? I mean, there's Ripple, who'll tell us a bit more about RippleNet, and there's Alipay and Tencent and all these kind of participants. Going back to the 1980s, that was definitely what we now call sort of the old generation of payments technology. And it worked very well. I mean, by and large, I've never had a payment go wrong in my life, and most people haven't. So where are we now, Marcus, in terms of the new generation? Is it 10% here, 90% here, 50% here?
It's here. It's very, very here. So our network is global. We plug into 45 countries already. We've got 300 customers. Customers for us are large banks, large payment companies like some MoneyGram, Asimo, Standard Chartered, Santander, those kind of guys. So we're real. We're pumping billions of dollars. We're using digital assets. We're using direct connectivity. So the big message for this podcast is that we're real, we're in play. The one thing that's really fascinating about your intro around people catching up is that the big challenge in getting the next generation of payments right is to take people with you, take the ecosystem with you. Mm-hmm. I mean, anybody can build blockchain in a lab, and we've got a lot of competitors who were giving us a run for money but aren't anymore. They're off in the corner developing wonderful shiny things, and of course you can't plug them into a world that thinks differently, has international regulation, international friction. You see trade issues popping up. And I think to get the world onto newer technology, a fundamental shift, you've also got to work the governance. You've got to build something that fits into the modern world or the existing world and takes it forward, right? So the approach we took was to think, okay, there are loads of payment companies out there. You called out a few like Alipay, there's PayPal, Tencent, the old-fashioned Swift. There are many, many, many of them. And the common theme is that they all act like islands or clubs. So if you're in the club, you can make payments for the people who are in the club. Arguably, being in a country is like being in a club. You and I and many of your listeners are in the Sterling Club. So you pay for things, pay each other in pound sterling, works because you're in the club. If you look at the world in its entirety, it's made up of hundreds of these little patches, little islands. Some of them are very big, many are very small. But there's nothing to interconnect them. And the situation is very similar to the one the world had before the internet kicked in around 2000, where you had many, many independent networks of data, but nothing interconnecting. So you and I on this podcast, we've been setting up phones and recordings, they've got QuickTime running, we've got all kinds of gadgetry between us, and it's all running smoothly over IP. Now, when you and I were coding back in the 80s, that would not have been possible. So I think the aha moment we had was, okay, if we can create an internet for money, an internet of value that connects together all these islands in a way that the internet of information using the magic of IP connected data together in the early noughties, we could enable the financial world to catch up with the information world. And that's really important. So if we can deliver money cross-country, cross-border in microseconds with what's called atomic certainty, so it never gets lost, then you've got a model that can keep up information. And that's what we built.
So what he's talking about here is right now you have all of these siloed payment systems, also all of these massive banks like JP Morgan. These are siloed systems. If you're not interconnected into that system, you can't really talk or send money to and from instantly to those systems. And so what technology do you need to bring in to be able to bridge all of those systems together? And this is where Ripple's genius really shines. The XRP XRP and the XRP community and all the development and liquidity that is going and being built on the XRP ledger is going to service a world of payments and a world of interconnection.
And that's why, I genuinely think we're different, and I genuinely think we're doing something that's beyond, what I think all other players are doing in this field.
Yes,
Love
and
that.
hearing you say that, it's a good segue given that you spoke about the importance of the interface between technology and human society, should we say, at large, or organisations.
Yes.
It's no good building something in your shed and then going and hiring a marketing team and a salesman to go and try and flog it. You have to change behaviours and you have to change how organisations work. And as we were both in quotes, the old city or the big incumbents, we know that for a whole bunch of actually relatively sensible reasons, it takes a while to effect change in large organizations.
Yes.
So maybe we can dive into it in terms of Ripple.
It does take a while for the world to catch up to this new technology because let's be honest, banks and corporations, they didn't want this new technology. They make money off of moving your money, right? They charge you $45 for a wire transfer. I get charged all the time when I'm paying my editor, that lives across the world. That's a pretty hefty fee to be paying once or twice a month. That is money that I would like to just be able to put back into XRP. So is there a technology that I can move that same amount of money for fractions of a penny? And the answer to that question is yes, there is. All right, let's move to the next bit here. The next bit, we said they could skip this 445 to 650, and this discussion of RippleNet begins. Let's listen to that.
And just sketch us what RippleNet is, perhaps without even using the word blockchain. Then maybe we could get beyond words and onto what it is you guys actually did and how you did it, which I think is fascinating. And then we can end up with saying, oh yes, it's a bit like a blockchain. It isn't really. Or
Yeah, certainly. If you've got your swear books ready, I'll attempt to do it without mentioning the as a scene setter, the important thing is to not get hung up on the tech. The tech is just it's a tool set. And as time goes on, there are better tools to play with. And, what we've done at Ripple, we've picked the best tools and applied them to the problem. And what we did, we worked at three levels. So to solve cross-border payments, you've got to work at three levels. So one, you've got to have what we Brits call a scheme. So, Visa's a scheme, MasterCard's a scheme, UK Clearing's a scheme. It's a set of rules, and banks and payment companies that use Ripple's technology sign up to this governance body that we've set up. We don't own it, we set it up, we manage it for the banks and payment companies, but it's theirs. And they use that forum to govern the rules and regulations that enable them to feel comfortable paying each other using Ripple technology. And that's where I think Mike chat later about ISO 20022. ISO 20022 links to Ripple because our governance body, the governing body of RippleNet, is a member of the ISO 20022 kind of management unit. And that's important because it's all about standards. And, these things never go away. So you have better technology, a revolution in how you do things, but you've got to have the standards. So we have the standards, ISO 20022 compliant, and we govern that. That's number one.
And on governance, for people who live in payments, they'll know all about that jazz. For people outside payments, they often don't realise that it's not just, as it were, quotes, a bunch of wires connecting things so you send your electrons down. But there is a whole kind of, let's call it mini societal scheme of rules and laws about how a society, the payment society, as it were, operates. And a good example being the credit card payment. I got the money back from the credit card. That is not because of how MasterCard actually transfers money around the world as money, but it's because it's wrapped in a bunch of rules, and in this case a bit of insurance, which says, actually, if the supplier doesn't supply it, then the payment can be reversed. Mumble. It's all that very complex jazz, isn't it?
Exactly. If I'm in the UK and I want to pay my friend in Thailand £100, then if my bank is using Ripple, it wants to know that the bank at the other end of the chain using Ripple is going to translate that money to Thai bahts. It's going to want to give it the information required for that bank to send that payment into the Thai baht clearing system, which is called Prompt Pay, to deliver that money immediately. If it goes wrong, if the person is, God forbid, dead or the account's closed, that bank needs to know the method. They're going to be told that the payment hasn't worked. So that governance is really important. And we built it, we defined it from scratch only about 4 years ago. And that gives us the anchor within which we could run a really 21st century network. So far, no tech involved, no B word, a pure rethink of how you should manage an open, the key thing is open, an open payment network between anybody to anybody, payment company and bank around the world. And that's working.
Just to pick up the word open, just so we get the big picture.
Just really quickly, remember ISO 20022, it's not the tokens that are compliant. It is the payment systems such as RippleNet that are compliant, and then you can use XRP in that payment system that is in fact now ISO compliant. And now the entire world has been forced to move to this new messaging standard, which is ISO 20022. It allows for richer data and more information to be shared for that payment, as well as you can attach something like cryptocurrency for instant settlement of that payment.
Right, just being a bit dumb here, which is an easy role for me to play. So what does the word open mean? In the following context, that I understood the first part of what we're talking about, which is that you've got this scheme as being basically, and if I give the wrong answer, then at least you can correct it. It's basically that how Ripple work, along with all other schemes, Visa, MasterCard, RTGS, you name it.
So we're talking about open source technology and how it works.
Is that it's a club. Let's just say it's a building, that you go into this building and they say, oh, you can join the club, but you've got to sign up to the rules. These are the rules of the club. And within the club, everybody follow those rules around refunds and blah, 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 and all that kind of stuff. And that the infinite use case where, for example, everybody in the world can access it at some point in the future, be more successful. I wouldn't, for example, connect personally to you without going via the club. Without going via that building and all the people and their rules, in large part for my protection. So I know if it goes wrong, I'll get my money back and that jazz. So yes, I'm a little bit confused over the sort of what I'm saying club, which may be the wrong word, and regulation and schemes, and then the use of the word open.
It's open because anybody can join it. So right now we plug into providers of banking or providers of payment service. So to individuals, they'll use their, let's say, their TransferGo in the UK, for example, one of our customers, or they might use Nuam in Singapore. And that company will use Ripple to connect to any other bank or payment company in its network. In future, you may have a world where the tech would support person to person, but we'll get to that a little bit later. The reason the rules and the governance body is open is anybody can join it. Any payment company and bank can join it, and then what they then do is abide by those rules for their own benefit. That's working, I think, extremely well. And the second layer of Ripple, painting my picture on my whiteboard, is interconnecting, I'm going a bit technical here, the ledgers, the core databases of payment companies and banks that are using Ripple. So a payment company would buy the Ripple software. You could run it on cloud, or they could run it on-prem. And that software kind of behaves a bit like a web server. It's a connector. And what it does is when a payment is going to move from a bank in one country on behalf of a customer initiating the payment to a bank or payment company in another country, the two Ripple connectors in each bank find each other, and at the same moment in time, using cryptography, again, I'm using the B word, but it's part of B, cryptography, to, at the same time, the same moment in time, update their ledgers. So in double entry bookkeeping speak, both balance sets in both institutions, Bank A in one country, Bank B in the other country, are completely aligned and updated at the same point in time.
So this is really interesting. So imagine a bank as just a ledger, right? And that bank has, people that it owes money to or balances and all of these stuffs, right? And so how do you connect this bank's ledger to that bank's ledger? And that's where the Ripple technology plugs in, and it interconnects those banks' ledgers and moves the value in between those banks instantaneously using XRP or RLUSD and settles both accounts. I thought that was a really good explanation of how this money is moving from bank to bank. It sure kind of painted a picture in my head. I hope it did for you at home.
Just pressing pause there. So, and going back to old blockchain, everybody who runs the blockchain, I'm running on my computer today, I'm not, but anyway, let's say I were, I would have a ledger, using your phrase, of every payment transaction sort of ever or whatever. In the model that you've got, as I'm hearing you say, there isn't a ledger of every transaction ever in the world that everyone has to keep updating and arguing over whether it's true or not, and the majority blah blah blah. It's more like the old scheme where, let's just say I'm a bank, the London FinTech Podcast bank, and I've got a record of all my payments, and let's say you're Marcus Street, your bank, and you've got a record of all yours. One of your clients or one of my clients sort of does something, and we basically do a sort of an instant settlement, as it were, and we go, yeah, it is $1,000. You go, yeah, no, it's $1,000, and it's $1 million baht. Yeah, sure, yeah, and you just kind of shake hands, yeah, it's a deal kind of thing, and it's dealt. Is that metaphorically speaking right?
It is, but again, the important thing is not to get hung up on the religion of the B word. And so you said it on me, so you're owing me £1. So the key is, so far, I've introduced the concept of cryptography. So you find cryptographic techniques when blocks in standard B networks are, locked in. But we've taken that cryptographic technique and we've applied it to something very different. And you're dead right. We've applied it to keeping ledgers that are very different from each other completely synchronized when money moves between them. And if you do that, again, you're departing from the holy, structure of pure B to something different. But that's the magic that unlocks an internet model. That's the magic of IP.
That's so cool.
And we call it ILP, Interledger Protocol. And it's a kind of a play on the term Internet Protocol. Okay, so that network is managing millions of payments. We do a few million every year right now, and we're growing at tenfold per annum. So, it's working, it's very effective, and it's delivering immediate payments around the world, which is fantastic. And you're dead right. So far, I've only introduced a tiny component of the usual kind of portfolio of a B network. And it's also worth pointing out that the structure is infinitely scalable. It's an internet model, and it doesn't cook the planet. So it's highly, highly efficient because you're purely coordinating using cryptography the balances in accounts around the world. Now, so far, if put the rules in place and I have this network running, I've solved the immediate payment problem, great, but I haven't solved the liquidity problem. And that is, there's loads of money, trillions, locked up in accounts all over the world.
Nostro vostro.
Overnight money, because people are going to park it there in yen or in dollars or in a Nigerian currency to fund these payments moving around. And that's a big, big source of constraint for payments globally today. What we've then done to cure that problem is introduce the third level of our network. And this really is, I'm going to use it, this really is the classic blockchain. There you go, I've said it. And this element is a blockchain that uses consensus methods to keep it current, which is very different to Bitcoin's mining. And it's hyper efficient and does not draw in gazillions of joules of energy and is extremely fast.
I'm just pressing pause.
All right, guys, listen, they're pressing pause. I'm going to press pause. I cannot make this video 35 minutes because you will lose all, you'll get lost in the ether. I'm going to do part 2 of this video. It's going to come out right after this video comes out. And we're going to get into all of the nitty gritty around XRP and all of this history. I just thought this was going to be valuable, not only to my learning, but also to you at home. I know that a lot of us are just starting our crypto journey and we're still trying to figure out how all this stuff works. And even people that have been in the space for quite some time, this is still kind of opening our eyes to all of the things that Ripple and XRP solve on a global scale. And so this is really exciting for me. All right, I'll see you in the next one. Part 2 is coming right after this one. All right, guys, thank you so much. If you got any value, you can like, share, leave a comment below. Just thank you for being here. Have a fantastic week ahead. It's always an honor to spend this time with you.